Hello. It's 4:20. Let's get high. So I've been thinking, and tasty herb. So I've been thinking, you know, um, that maybe I just come to the end of this 420 thing. And certain things happened, and I thought, maybe I'm not right. Nonetheless, I must say, there are a lot of things going on in my life, and more requests upon my time and energy. And I have to recognize it's hard for me to come on 4 days a week for a half hour and sort of uh, be con- contem- be spontaneous and say something cool. And so I thought maybe if I read my stuff, and that did all right, but I saw that I really kind of lost my audience. So I came up with an alternative that I think is something that I could carry on. That when I'm here 420, I always try to get high at 420 because I know many other people, in this time zone. I'm California, West Coast. It's 420. Let's get high. So I like being part of that whole trip. And it feels good. And I've explained many times before the number 420 has a lot to do, in Hebrew. Uh, uh, so I thought, well, if I just wanted to read my books, I don't have to do it live. And there's really no point to someone hears me reading a book, the brain I can ask me a question. And same if I'm sort of going on with me. And uh, uh, so there's not a whole lot that I want to say. I'm getting another migraine. I had these migraines, and they're kind of like they don't hurt or anything. They make me a little seasick. Maybe I never got seasick when I was in the Navy, but these things make me a little seasick. And there's really, it's a little bit like being on acid or something. Like you see all these geometrical things that kind of wash over your vision, and you know. So, but oftentimes, it gets really deep in it. They're very hard to read. And but anyways, I mean, could be that I've been having more coffee than usual. I get nervous and I drink coffee. It's an odd thing. And so sometimes that happens. You get too much caffeine, I've noticed, and it can sort of do this to you. But so, anyways, I just felt that that maybe we just hang out for a half hour, see if anyone comes by, and see if anyone has a question. But this way, I can actually see if someone, comes, and I can address that person immediately. Hello, how you doing, man? Welcome to 420 Live. So that's my idea. So I haven't come prepared to say anything uh, um, about anything. I'm not going to push myself. I'm not going to feel like I got to come up with something. You know, but I can talk about my book a little bit. That my book is coming out next week, be available next week. You go into any bookstore or Amazon or wherever you get your books, and you get my book. My book is like no other book. I just truly mean this because, see, we're living in this time that um, the entire world is encrusted with lies. Everywhere you look is the lie. And my book is the truth. My book has a light in it that's going to break through the lie. And I'm really encouraging people to buy my book, to read my book, and to review my book. My book is called Zohar Beyond the Black Hole. And in any way that that we all can, to try to put this um, to try to put this out there. So I have someone who who like got to me through. She was interested in Kabbalah, and so they did stuff with the tarot. And so she was interested in my work, so I let her read a PDF of my book, and she just like flipped out and said, "Man, I want to help you," and that's cool, because I've never been very good at selling my stuff. So we're doing all this stuff on social media. I mean, it's just too much for me. So any help will be very appreciated. Uh, and yeah, yeah, people. Yeah. Well, I would prefer. I mean, the book will, is an ebook. So that's another thing. It's like, it's like very cheap, like $2.99 or something or nothing. And I don't think me reading my book was a very professional thing, but I don't know. I just leave it on my website. I'm not on my website. I leave it on YouTube. So if someone's interested, they can do it. But I'm not going to put it on my website. But I am going to start like a new thing on my website. I'm calling it Tarot Diaries. And I'm going to write, I don't know about every day, but I'm going to write uh, my experiences with tarot. Because, some of these, I've been doing like, clubs out here. I've been meeting some people, they're doing parties. So, I've been doing some parties. I like doing parties. Uh, it's like, when I first recognized that I had this capacity in tarot. It was 1990. I was 50 years old, I believe. And that's not right. That would be 26 years. Is that true? Anyways, uh, I have this facility with the tarot, so I didn't quite know what to do about it. So uh, uh, so what did I do? So I'd heard about the Limelight, and I heard it's a really decadent place down in Chelsea, in Manhattan, Chelsea neighborhood. And so I went down there and I met the guy who ran. His name is Michael Ellig. He passed away recently in the paper. And uh, um, yeah, like so he was he called him the grandfather of the club kids. It's kind of funny because club kids were all gay, and you know, so it's kind of anyways. But he was just really into his trip, and he like was leading this movement. And I met him, and I sat down with him. I asked for a appointment with him. I sat down with him, and I explained to him that uh, that um, the tarot cards are a very spiritual thing. And if you bring it into a really decadent place, then it becomes an art form. And he said, well, that's cool, you know? And um, so he said, we made a kind of deal, and he said, come on in. So I remember the first night I went in there, and you have to understand that the limelight is this really seedy place. It was like this seat. I wouldn't say the seediest place, but it was very known. It was in a building, used to be a church, and it had these steeples and it had all these kind of rooms in it, and people did all sorts of shit there. And the deal was, as I got in there and started to know people, was the deal was, as long as nobody died, they could do whatever they want. And let me tell you, people did whatever they want. And that's where I got my first initiation into being a tarot card reader, and just had some really extraordinary experiences, I must say. And the different people I met, and how people are so open in that kind of atmosphere, they really can get a spiritual epiphany about their life. I even had people who came to me and were serious that I got a life and death situation. I'm not sure how to choose. If I choose one way, I make a lot of money. I choose the other way, I'm a dead man. And I gave people counsel. I could never tell anyone what to do, but I could show them in the cards, the kind of attitude to take. And people were very appreciative of it. And I remember on the first night, I'm sitting in my place there, and a little bit nervous, and here comes in this entourage of these girls with hair and dresses and silk and all. So, and one of them comes over to me and plants a big kiss on my cheek. Hmm. I don't know if this is going through. It says I'm unstable. Plants this big kiss on my cheek and walks off. And one of the guys in the entourage comes over to me and says, that was Michael. And it was, these good guys knew how to have fun. They were the club kids, and they just took a lot of drugs and had a lot of fun, but eventually took too many drugs and ended up killing someone, with a compatriot named Angel, and cutting him up into pieces and throwing him into the river. They caught up with Michael and arrested him, and he spent many years in jail. He got out maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago. And he said of himself, I was on a lot of drugs. And that's it. And these guys, they played with death. They really did. And they thought it was interesting. And some of them even thought the AIDS was like interesting. It was like a challenge. It's a different kind of way to look at things, very pleasure oriented, and it's interesting. Uh, uh, just I'm reading cards lately here in LA. A lot of people are gay, and so I was reading for this gay guy the other day, and it's all about relationship. And he tells me he's married and this is his husband, and because guys generally talk in male and female paradigm. I explained to him this is also, it's also applicable, to a male and male relationship. There's nothing wrong with that, unless you're Jewish, and Jewish men are not allowed that, but other people are. And and one of the reasons I felt I should explain to him was that um, uh, someone complained to me. I think also at one of these parties that the whole gay thing with homos and trying to sort of enlist people. It was like that in the 60s. It was different then because people weren't out of the closet and no one knew who was gay, so they were always hitting on everyone. But this is something different. This is like a movement which is trying to get stronger by trying to, I guess, seduce heterosexuals into a gay way of life, to be at least bisexual. And no judgment. I just want to say one thing, two things actually. I'm talking a lot more than I thought I wanted to talk. But what can you do? But I do want to say these two things. I think they're important things to say. Uh, 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 One is the difference between a man on man relationship and a man on woman relationship is the experience of sex with a man and woman relationship, a heterosexual relationship, is just a second, is that we revisit the androgyny which we experienced, before, um, when we were one entity. Before we were divided up into gender, we were androgynous, as it says in the Torah. We were one androgynous being, and a man couldn't see the woman, so God split him in half. And that's why sex with a woman is like no other experience. It's the only way that we can do that. However, sex man on man doesn't have that because there was no original, as they say, Adam and Steve, and therefore that is missing in sex. And instead of that, it's been explained to me, because of the what is it, the gland, the sexual gland, or what was it called, that's pituitary, but the people sometimes got to get cancer there, whatever, and that male sex like sort of does something to that. And so it's a different kind of pleasure. It's a very physical pleasure. And most male relationships, I mentioned this guy also, are very, it's more a physical thing. And his problem came up in his cards with that it was more transactional. Like, I'll do this for you, you do this for me. And that comes up actually in a lot of people's tarot card reading, is this idea of being, a transactional sex, which is not bad, but it's just kind of the lower level of love. Higher levels of love, but some people aren't doing it for love, they're just doing it for the physical experience. So then it makes sense to have a transactional sort of thing. I get this, you get that, And men and women also have that, where they maybe even have like sort of a transitional marriage, they fist both of them. They don't really like each other, but they stay married, There's all sorts of ways to do this, and there's no right or wrong in it. This is the person's choice. This is how they're leading this story, and God's good with it. The rest of us should be good with it. So that was one thing that I told them, and now I forget what the other thing was, but I don't know what that means. Anyways, I'm gonna have some more to smoke because it's 4:20, and I just don't want to put this kind of pressure on myself, because I have this like spinal muscular problem that I've been working out for 7 years. It's been unwinding. And now it's getting right to the epicenter, which is my solar plex. solar plexus. And it's really, it's a really sensitive part of a person's body. I remember as kids would, hit you there purposely, to knock the wind out of you. And it seems that's kind of the epicenter of my problem. And it pushes against this as it unwinds. And someone described me before this process started as someone whose heart had fallen. And that's sort of what it is, and how my stomach is going up and my chest is going down, and there's this big gouge in between. But, when I first started the process, I was, when I went to a rolfer and he helped me to like turn it around instead of getting tighter, it started to unwind. The muscles just needed some direction. And when I got up the next morning, I looked into the mirror. My body was like this, and then it went in like this. There was this big hollow in, and I felt this uh, hardness, like right, like down, like right in the pubic area, like the bone down there, and I felt something hard there, and little by little, I felt this thing growing, and it's grown now all the way up till now it's into my solar plexus. So, and every time something moves on twists, it's very, I mean, my body just gets exhausted, like I did something. And I think a lot of times, because the way my body unwinds mostly is when I'm asleep. So it seems to like Shabbat because I just sleep a lot on Shabbat, and it gets a chance to unwind. But anyways, when it's tight like this, it's hard for me to speak, to feel as free. I'm supposed to be blowing the shofar these days, and it's very hard for me to blow the shofar because I don't have that diaphragmic energy. I think this stuff takes it over. So, anyways, that's what's going on with me. Thank you, Prius. I could come tweet from the street. I do not know what that means. It's only the two of us on here, so I mean, Carl's on here and Prius. Oh, so Carl asked a few minutes here that what's the meaning of blowing the shofar? So there's a Tehillim. See, the shofar is the ram's horn, and there's a sentence in Tehillim which says, "Mirchav Yah." Oh man, I can't remember. So I'll just say it in English. That we cry out to God from our narrowness, and God answers us from the great width. So that's like your shofar, a ram's horn that you blow through the narrow end, and you hear a sound through the large end. And see, here's the thing. There is a day of judgment. And the day of judgment is the day the first human being was created, male and female, androgynous, on the sixth day of creation. And um, And on that day, once a year, it's a 2-day holiday, but it's all really one day. It corresponds to two hemispheres of the brain. That's why it's called Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, instead of the beginning of the year. And on that day, God is a judge. The rest of the year, God's not judging us. God's just watching our story, listening to our prayers, being part of our lives. But on Rosh Hashanah, God becomes, instead of Ha'el HaMelech, Ha'el HaKodesh, before being the kind God, now God becomes HaMelech HaKodesh, that the king, and the king who's going to judge us according to what we did in the prior year, and to what we deserve in the next year, how much money we're going to make, even how many days we're going to live. Even though we have an assigned amount of days, years, nonetheless, people, that's what it means when a person dies before their time. Doesn't mean necessarily they died when they were young. It means that they died before their appointed number of years. And I mean, this is stuff that's known in heaven. We don't know what our appointed number of years are, but it's known in heaven. And one can make, actually, sometimes, to get more years. Depends, I guess, what you do, because every year we're judged. And, in certain years, no matter how much you want to stay alive, God's going to end our life, because God has judged us. And I think a good example of this is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who died like Erev Rosh Hashanah. That she couldn't get to Rosh Hashanah because God had decreed that she would die. A good woman, spent many years like really being a good human being, but that's it. This is the end. But let her go to the very end, because she wanted to live so much so that, so Trump couldn't replace her. But that was not what happened. That was not God's wishes. But God looks at the story and doesn't look at the right or wrong so much. And by the time Rosh Hashanah comes, we're supposed to have already thought about the things we did, good and bad, in the year, and go into Rosh Hashanah pure, blow the Chauffeur, showing that we are in narrow straits, and that God should answer us with the great sound of having more width. And so we certainly, I guess, we should talk about this stuff. It is a lot easier for me, I think, just to not have to feel like I have to, present something. But even if just a few of us, we can hang out, for a half hour and talk about these things. You can ask me questions and stuff, and so that's good. That's better than me reading shit or stuff like that. So I did it, 30 minutes.